Hello dear student. So today we are going to start the first topic from the chemistry, that is classification of elements and periodicity in the properties. Actually this is unit number 3 in the PUC first year syllabus. So if we see this unit for CET point of view, in most of the question paper this unit carries minimum 1 mark into your CET examinations. So our CET chemistry include, so first we will be having some part regarding the theory, then followed by MCQs. So let us try to understand what are the theoretical parts are there in this unit over which most of the CET questions are based. So roughly everyone has an idea regarding the classification of element, the periodic table, some of the properties in the periodicity. So roughly if you see that periodic table, there are near about 18 groups in the periodic table and the 7 period. Means 118 elements are classified as there are 7 periods and that of an 18 groups. So if you have a little bit more idea regarding which element belongs to which group, which element belongs to which period, then identifying their property, locating them into the periodic table is going to be somewhat easy. So if you can locate or if you can identify that element in the periodic table, then definitely that will give you the link to answer the respective question which is going to appear into the CET 2020 exams. So if we just talk about roughly who has tried their level best to classify the element, the first scientist who was there to classify the element is what? Dauberner triad. So he made the set of 3 elements like lithium, sodium and that of potassium, and he has taken the average of other 2 elements of the triad. So he has taken the average atomic mass of the first and last element of the triad, and what average mass he got, that was a little bit or that was almost matching with the practical mass of the middle element of a triad. So therefore this is called as Dauberner law of a triad, because he used a set of 3 elements to classify the respective element in the periodic table. But this law was not successful for most of the element. Only 3 to 4 triad he could give along with his principle, but remaining element got unclassified. So therefore we have a second scientist, the Newland law of octave. According to the Newland law, when we arrange an element along the group in cases of their atomic masses increasing order, then whatever 8th element we are going to get there. When we arrange the group in the increasing order of atomic masses, the 8th element which will appear there, that will be having the same chemical behavior as that of the first element in the same group. So if we take an example, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine and that of sodium. So sodium here it is a 8th element. So if you see the chemical properties between a lithium and that of sodium, the lithium and sodium are almost chemically similar, and if you start with that of sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, the 8th element for the sodium is what? A potassium here. If you see the properties of sodium and potassium, even the properties of sodium and the potassium was chemically similar. So Newland says that whenever we arrange the element in the increasing order of their atomic masses or weight, the element which is going to appear as an 8th element, the element which is going to appear as an 8th element is going to have the same chemical properties. So therefore it is say that a Newland law of octave. But even Newland cannot go or could not go after the calcium, because after the calcium his principle was not being applied properly there. It was unsuccessful after the calcium. So therefore we had a third scientist in the classification, that is a Mendeleev. And Mendeleev is going to be a very important personality in the chemistry, because his classification with respect to what number of elements were available at the time of Mendeleev, he has successfully classified almost all elements at his time with a certain irregularities. So his base principle is what? Atomic masses. So he has arranged the group in cases of periods and that of the columns with the increasing order of atomic masses, But even Mendeleev got certain exceptions there. The reason is that if we see the element potassium, the potassium has an atomic mass 39.09, whereas the argon has an atomic mass 39.95. It means that if we go along with the principle of a Mendeleev, first the lower element should come, then the element with a higher mass should come. But actually in the periodic table, the argon has an atomic number 18 and the potassium has an atomic number 19. It means that according to the mass, the argon should come next, whereas potassium could come first, whereas in the real periodic table, argon is coming first there and the potassium is coming second. So which is against to the law of Mendeleev, because in the Mendeleev law the increasing order of atomic masses should be there, but whereas here there is a decreasing order of the atomic masses. So those elements are not following the principle given by the Mendeleev. So therefore, because of this irregularities or demerit, we can say that it was not being successfully applied at that time. Even there was no proper place for a lanthanide and actinide in the Mendeleev periodic table. The Mendeleev could not clarify the certain or the exact position of the hydrogen in the periodic table. But whatever number of elements were available at the time of Mendeleev, maximum of the element has got classified with certain exceptions. And Mendeleev was knowing that the whatever number of elements were there available at his time, that is not only the element going to be there a part of a chemistry. He thought that there are some more elements supposed to be discovered in the coming future. So he has left certain places into the periodic table, so that when those elements actually get discovered, they will be at that position. So he was just not knowing the present of chemistry, he was also having an idea regarding the future of the chemistry. So certain element called as an Eka aluminium, Eka silicon, these are the element which is got discovered later, but position in the periodic table has kept empty by the Mendeleev there. But with a few demerits, even he was not successful there. So therefore a last scientist we are having in the classification, that is going to be called as Henry Moseley. And Henry Moseley periodic table can be called as a modern periodic table, or it may be also termed as long form of a periodic table. There is no much differences between the basic principle used by the Mendeleev and the Henry. Mendeleev thought of atomic masses, whereas Moseley thought of the atomic number. So he has arranged the element in the periodic table along the periods and that of groups in the increasing order of atomic number. The Mendeleev used a base called as an increasing order of atomic weight or atomic masses, whereas Mendeleev was taking consideration of atomic number. And by taking an atomic number, maximum of time that atomic number, why he has taken an atomic number, that study decided by the X-ray diffraction technology. With that help, he considered atomic number will be the base to classify the element into the periodic table. So with that he got a maximum success there, but again there was certain limitations which could not be solved by the Mendeleev remained as it is at his time also. The reason is that the hydrogen position, even it was uncertain by the Henry. The reason is that hydrogen has a certain similarity with group 1 as well as group 14 and also the group 17. So big question arises now, if one element has a similarity with the 3 groups, then what will be the exact position of hydrogen in the periodic table? So you could not justify. In the present periodic table we see that the hydrogen is there is a first member of a group 1, but it is not that it is an 100% fixed position of the hydrogen. Even the F block element have been not kept into the main periodic table, they have been kept below the periodic table. So even Henry could not give a clear idea what is the reason behind it to keep the F block element below the periodic table. So this is all regarding how the scientists made their effort to classify the respective element into the periodic table. Now you may have any choices of 1 marks from the respective area. They may ask you what is the base principle used by Henry to classify the element in the periodic table. So the option may be atomic number, atomic masses, the electronic configuration, or their physical states. So you need to know at least keywords which has been mentioned here, because on this keywords only maximum of time the questions can appear. Now let us talk about the second part into the unit. Now we gonna classify these element with respect to their electronic configuration. It means that in what last orbital the electron get filled, that will decide what position it has in the periodic table. If any element is taking its last electron into the s orbital, so that will become a s block element. If any element taking last electron into the p orbital, that will become a p block element. Similarly, d block element and the f block element. Each block has a certain, it is like a shell and the subshell. So each shell has a certain subshell, and totally that will decide the accommodating ability of the shell. So similarly, if you talk about s orbital, the s can have maximum of 2 electron there. So similarly, p can have maximum of 6 electron, d can have maximum 10 electron, whereas the f orbital can have the at the maximum 14 electron. So this electronic distribution is decided by how many subshell the respective shell has. So as S has only one subshell, so therefore it can maximum take 2 electron. P has a 3, the Px, Py and the Pz. So 2 into 3 it is going to be 6 electron there. D has 5, so 5 into 2 is going to be 10 electron there. F has 7, so 7 into 2 is going to be 14 electron there. Irrespective whether it is s orbital, p orbital, d orbital or else f orbital, each orbital in the chemistry can have maximum of 2 electrons only. Depending on how many subshell they are having, that may further get increased by the number of electrons. So if any element enter into the s orbital, that will be a s block element. P orbital, that will be a p block element. D orbital, that will be a d block element, and finally it is going to be f orbital. So if you see a general electronic configuration of s block, it is going to be n as 1 to 2. So where n indicate the principal quantum number. Means principal quantum number will give you an idea in which respective groups the respective element is being located there. So n as 1 to 2. Similarly for p block element, the s block elements are group 1 to 2 are s block element, p block is going to be group 13 to 18, the d block is going to be 3 to 12, and below the periodic table with 2 different periods are going to be the f block element. So if you see the general electronic configuration of p block element, it is n s2 n p 1 to 6. So as a p block will come after the s block. So first s orbital get filled, then the electron that p can have maximum 6 electron. So electron lies between 1 to 6. It is going to lies between 1 to 6. The s and p block elements are also called as representative element or main group element. That may be also one more question. What are the s block element or which group element are called as an representative element? So you should know that s block and the p block are called as representative or main group elements. If you just take the general electronic configuration of D block, it is going to be n minus 1, D 1 to 10, n as 0 to 2. Sometime it is going to be n minus 1, D 1 to 10, n as 1 to 2. Both choices are possible. If you see the NCERT first year textbook and that of an second year textbook, both has got mentioned there. N minus 1, D 1 to 10 will be a common. N as 0 to 2 is also there, and 1 to 2 is also there. So both it can be an preferable. So if you see the general electronic, the D block element are going to be called as a transition element. The reason is that they are in between S and P block element. On the right side there are S block element, on the left side there are P block element. So there will be a gradual change into the property from metallic to non-metallic. The gradual change in the property from metallic to non-metallic take place. So therefore, as there is a change in the property continuously, hence it is called as transition. In between it is, so therefore it is called as an transition. And the F block elements are what? They are within the transition, where actually change in the property are taking place. In that F block is there. So therefore they are termed as inner transition element. Therefore they are termed as inner transition element. Now if you see the general electronic configuration of F block, it is n minus 2, F 1 to 14, n minus 1, D 0 to 1 and n as 2. So you need to focus more over these 4 electronic configuration. The general electronic configuration of S, P, D and that of an F. If you have got an idea about the general electronic configuration, then writing the electronic configuration of a element belonging to that respective groups, or else a period will be an easy task there. If I know the general electronic configuration of D block, I can write an electronic configuration of any element belonging to the D block element. The reason is that when you know general that what is the capacity of D block, what is the capacity of the s orbital, how many electron it can take, how many electron a D can take, and how will be the filling of electron. First electron will enter into the s, then it is going to enter into the D there. So similarly, when you clear with the general configuration, writing the configuration of element is going to be an easy task. See, CED is that what? In PUC's word, mostly they will ask you straight away, write the electronic configuration of D, F, S and the P. Whereas in the CET, the question get carried from that of the general to respective element. So not only a general is going to be helpful there, you must know general, but you should have an idea how to get an electronic configuration of the element there. Now there was a little bit controversy over the element discovery at that time, because up to 100 there was the element who were having the respective name, but after the element which are there above the 100, the same element got classified by different scientists. Then there was a controversy whose name should be given to the respective name of the element. And now to solve that controversy, IUPAC has made certain other rules and regulation till the controversy gets suppressed. And IUPAC has given certain guidelines. The guidelines are what? Whenever we want to write an element's name with respect to its symbol, who are coming after the atomic number 100. In that case, the IUPAC has given certain guidelines. The guidelines are what? Each respective number is going to have certain name there. So if you talk about 0, it is going to have nil, then 1, on, bi, tri, quad, pent, hex, sept, oct and the in. There is a little bit difficulties with respect to the 4 is going to be basically in a 4 we call as a tetra, whereas here it is called as a quad. The reason is that I need to use a first letter of the name in terms of a symbol. So try always start with a T. If I use a tetra there, then that will become again a T. So then there will be a problem whether that number indicate a 3 or indicate a 4. To avoid that, other names have been used, is called as a quad there. It is going to be called as a quad. Similarly, hex, the sept. Hex is going to have sept. So there also we are going to avoid the similar letter, and in is going to be different. So if you just add these names, that 0 is going to be nil, un, bi, tri, quad, the pent, hex, sept, oct, in. The first letter of each name will become a prefix when we write a symbol. Now imagine that we are writing an IUPAC name of an atomic number 101. Now 101 has a 3 digit, 1, 0 and the 1. So 1 stands for nil there, so I have written a nil. 1 stands for un there, so I have taken an un. 0 stands for a nil, so nil. Again 1 come, so it is going to be un. And each IUPAC name is going to end with IUM. Each IUPAC name is going to end with IUM. If already I is there, at the end of respective name, then I should not be repeated there. Only UM you are going to write there. It is going to be a case in case of a bi there, because if it is in a 2, it has a bi. Means last letter of the name bi is going to be I there. So therefore we have not repeated an I there. So it is just a un, bi, UM. So if there is no I at the end of a name, then you can write IUM. If there is an I at the end of the name, then just it is going to be ended by UM. So you may get a question with respect to an IUPAC name. It may be a name or it may be a symbol. So symbol, how it will be on? The first letter of each name is going to be on symbol. So if you see an example 112, the 1 stands for under. So first letter of un is going to be U. Then second letter is 1. 1 stands for again un. So first letter is going to be U. Third letter it's a 2. 2 stands for bi. So first letter is going to be B. The first letter of each number is going to be a symbol there. The first letter of each number will become a symbol there. So two way of question will be there. One way they may ask you the IUPAC name with respect to an atomic number. So first, second, they may ask you the symbol of the respective atomic number. In other words, it is vice versa is also possible. They may give a symbol of an respective element whose atomic number can be asked, or they may give an IUPAC name of a certain element whose atomic number can be asked. So you need to just have this data of 1 to 0 to 9. So if you have 0 to 9 data, you just by it or mark up it. It is going to be very easy. Only chord and the shaft with in are going to be a different one. So with this data only, if you are lucky and if you get a question from IUPAC sections of this inorganic, easily it is going to be an answerable. Now talking about the periodic properties of the elements. So far what we have discussed that was regarding how the classification of element has been done there. Now we need to talk about the properties of the element which are there into the periodic table. So when we say properties, basically two types of properties get arises. One is going to be a physical property based on their physical appearance, another is going to be a chemical property based on their chemical reactivity. So physical property as well as chemical property, both we will try to focus on, but according to the previous question paper what we have seen there, the most of the focus was given for the physical properties, because chemical property get related to the other units also. So therefore it has not been found out to have more focus for chemical. So try to give more attentions for the chemical along with the physical along with the chemical also. So the first we are having an atomic size, the size of an atom. So the size of atom is going to be decided by, it is nothing but the distance between the center of an atom to the outermost shell of an electron. So at the center of an atom we got a nucleus, and it will be having certain number of shell, and in the shell there will be an electron. So what will be the distance between the center of a nucleus till the outermost shell of an electron? The center of nucleus till the outermost shell of electron. So that distance between center of nucleus to outermost shell of electron is called as an atomic radius. Now atomic radius is observed in an atom, means it has to be an individual one there. So when it is individual, then only you can locate where is the last electron in the last shell. But if we have a molecule like O2, like an O2. So O2 won't exist separately. It will be there as an O bond O. So here you cannot recognize what was the exact location of the last electron into the outermost shell. So as the bond is going to be a covalent there, what we are going to do? We are going to make half of the total length. We are going to make half of the total length. So covalent radius is defined that it is 1/2 of the distance between. It is 1/2 of the distance between two covalently bounded atom or a nucleus. Two covalently bounded atom or a nucleus. If you compare an atomic radius and covalent radius, atomic radius is going to be a bit longer, whereas covalent radius is going to be a shorter one there. So question may be on the basis of atomic radius and the covalent radius. Two more we are having, the van der Waals radius and the metallic radius. Van der Waals stands for, see, only a single atom, it is an atomic radius. Two molecules are connected, it's a covalent radius. And if two neighboring molecules are having certain force of attraction, two neighboring molecules are having certain force of attraction, then whatever distance between will be there between two covalently bounded adjacent. Two covalently bounded adjacent. So if you make half of that, then that is going to be an van der Waals radius. So atoms are smaller, then atom combined to form a molecule, and a neighboring molecule will become a van der Waals. So as you can compare the atom, then molecule closer, then two molecule, means definitely van der Waals will be a bit longer there as compared to the atomic and the covalent, because they may also frame a question there, which of the following radius is longer or shorter, or they may also ask you arrange the following radius on increasing order or else on the basis of decreasing order. Similarly, we have a metallic radius. Metallic radius is prescribed to a metal there. So when two metal nuclei are adjacent, what distance they are going to have, if you take half of that, then that is going to be a metallic radius. So if you generally have an observation, van der Waals radius is larger or longer than metallic radius, and metallic radius is longer than the covalent radius. In other way, covalent is shorter than the metallic and metallic is shorter than the van der Waals radius. Always van der Waals radius is going to be longer because that is generated because of weak force of attraction. Now the next one is going to be an ionic radius. See, whenever an atom has two opportunities there. One, it may donate an electron. Second, it may receive an electron. If it donate an electron, then it will become a cation. If it receive an electron, it will become an anion. So you can see loss of electron. On chlorine, take the electron and become a chloride ion. So the size of an sodium was 154 picometer, whereas the size of a sodium ion, that is Na plus, is 95. So generally it clears that whenever any element lose the electron, there will be an increase in the effective nuclear charge, and because of increase in the effective nuclear charge, contraction of atom take place, and because of contraction, the size of atom decreases. The size of the atom decreases. Whereas it is going to be an opposite in case of an ion, because in case of an anion we are adding the electron. What we are doing there? We are adding the electrons. So already there were certain electrons located in the shell. Now you are adding some other electrons. So it is as like a host there. Already there were electron. An electron has a negative charge. So they were having certain repulsion with one another already there. Now you are adding an electron which has again a negative charge. Then what will happen? When you add that electron, the repulsion is going to increase, and because of increase in the repulsion, the expansion of atom takes place. Because of increase in the repulsion, the expansion of atom takes place. So therefore, Cl has a 99 picometer size, whereas chloride has 181 picometer. As you go on, add the electron, repulsion increases, and with increase in the repulsion, expansion increases, and hence size of an atom is going to increase. Whereas it is opposite in case of an cation. As you go on removing an electron, as you go on removing the electron, the attraction of remaining electron with the nucleus increases, and as attraction increases, contraction of atom increases, and hence size of an atom is going to continuously, it is going to decrease. So if you just see two example here, a copper plus 1, copper plus 2, it means that copper has a 29 electron, copper plus 1 28, copper plus 2 27. It has lost 2 electron, 1 electron, no loss of electron. More loss, so it is going to have very small size. Less loss, bit bigger, and no loss, larger. Means neutral is bigger than 1 charge, it is bigger than plus 2 charge. Similarly for anion, O 8 electron, O minus, then O minus, means it has 2 extra electron, 1 extra electron, and only 8 electron. As the number increases, expansion will take place and the size of atom is going to increase. So just remember one point. In case of an cation, whenever you go on removing an electron, the effective nuclear charge increases, contraction takes place, size decreases. Whereas in the anion, when you go on removing an electron, expansion will take place and size of atom is going to increase, and size of atom is going to increase. Taking the next one, the isoelectronic ion. The name itself suggests isoelectronic. Electronic stands for the electron, iso stands for same. Iso stands for same. Means the species, it may be an ion or it may be an atom in certain cases. So as they have mentioned the ion, so no doubt that will be an ion only, but it is going to be an atom also in certain cases. So iso stands for same, electron stands for electronics. So any different elements or different ions, their nature may be different, but if they have the same number of electrons, then those ions can be termed as isoelectronic in the nature. So if we take an example, the sodium has an atomic number 11, so when it becomes plus 1, loss of 1 electron, 10 electron. Magnesium has an atomic number 12, when it becomes plus 2, it will lose 2 electron, 10 electron. When aluminum, if it has 13 electron, when it loses 3 electron, remains with 10. Oxygen has an 8 electron, when it takes a 2 electron, 8 plus 2 is going to be 10. Fluorine has a 9 electron, when it takes 1 electron, it is going to be 10. Nitrogen has a 7 electron, when it takes a 3 electron, it is going to be 10. Now see here, natures are different. Sodium, magnesiums are not same. Aluminum, oxygen, fluorine, neon, nitrogens are not same. But they all have something common in that is what the electron. That is what? Electron. So as they have same electron, so therefore they all can be termed as isoelectronic ion. They all can be termed as isoelectronic ion. And in most of the question paper, there are the questions related to isoelectronic concept. So when you know the atomic number of an element, then only it is going to be clear. Let me tell you, if you just know the element, you cannot answer. Definitely you cannot answer is because to count the electrons, the way I have counted sodium as an 11, it has lost 1, then it has become a 10. So first we should know that sodium has how many electron. By mistakenly if I say that sodium has the 9 electron, when it become a plus 1, then it is going to have 8 electron. Then what I will say that sodium and the magnesiums are not having same electron, means they are not isoelectronic. So that problem will arise only when you don't have a proper idea regarding its atomic number in the periodic table. Its atomic number in the periodic table. So first I suggest you at least 50 elements atomic number you should have. When you have the elements up to 50, if not 50, at least try to 30. The zinc is going to be end of a D block element family. So if you have that much also now, then it is going to be very easy. Otherwise, knowing just isoelectronic is not going to be a big deal. Because for PUC it was easy. They will ask you a definition of isoelectronic ion. It is not going to be PUC based. It is going to have application based. So you should have. Now, as you know that ionic sizes. Just now I have cleared that ionic sizes, there were two types. We had an cations and that of an anions also. So cations, as the loss of electron take place, size of atom decreases. As the gain of electron take place, the size of atom increases there. So we all are having here certain different ion. So let us decide which one is smaller in the size, which one is bigger in the size, or we can arrange them in the series. It may be increasing order, it may be decreasing order. If you see these all ions, you will come to know that sodium, magnesium and the aluminum are cations. They are positively charged. Means definitely they are smaller in the size. Whereas oxygen, fluorine and neon, they have a negative charge. Means they are definitely large in the size. Within that, if you see oxygen has a -2, fluorine has -1, nitrogen has a -3. So nitrogen has a bigger negative charge, definitely more repulsion, bigger size. So nitrogen is bigger than that of an oxygen, oxygen is bigger than that of a fluorine. Now within the cation, sodium +1, magnesium +2, aluminum +3. I told you, more the loss of electron, more will be the contraction. Means more contraction is there in the aluminum. Means out of these three, this is very smaller, then magnesium, then sodium. Means sodium is somewhat bigger. Then after fluorine, it's sodium, then magnesium, and that of an aluminum. So this is how you may get a question with respect to not only one element in the options. The options may contain both cation and anions also. In that case, first you just segregate or divide the cation separate and the anion separate. Then just follow out of the cation which one is smaller, bigger. Out of the anion which one is smaller and the other. And then reorganize. Then only the answer is going to be right there. Now let us see how will be the variation of atomic size in the group and along the period will take place. This is going to be very simple aspects because as you move along down the group, the number of shells are going to increase. As you move down the group, the number of shells are going to increase. And with increase in the number of shell, the distance between center of the nucleus and outermost shell of the electron will increase. Because as the shell is increasing, the distance goes on increasing. So down the group, atomic radius increases and hence the size of an atom increases. Whereas within the period, the number of cells remains same. The number of shells remain same. But though the number of shells are same, the number of electron in the outermost shells are not same. If you just take an example, this has 1 electron into the outermost shell, this has 2 electron, this has 3 electron, this has 4 and the 5. See, number of protons in the nucleus is going to be somewhat not definable there. So if you see here, it has 1 electron into the outermost shell, it has 2 electron, it has 3 electron, it has 4 and it has 5. So what happens? 1 electron cannot exert that much of attractions with the nucleus, whereas 2 can have maximum attraction with the nucleus, 3 can have still more, 4 can have still more, and 5 can have a maximum. So what happens along the period? As the number of electron in the cell are increasing, so with increase in the number of shell, the contraction of atom will take place. With increase in the number of shell, the contraction of atom take place. Hence along the period, you may take any period into the periodic table, the size of atom goes on decreasing, whereas down the group, as the number of cell increases, the size of atom is going to increase. So if you just see here idea, they are down the group 123, 154, 196, 211, 225, so it is increasing. They are along the period 123, 90, 80, 77, 74, 74, 72, so they are decreasing. So down the group it is going to increase, and along the period it is going to decrease. Now second most important, ionization enthalpy, ionization energy or ionization potential. Means what? You are removing an electron from the outermost shell. From the outermost shell you are removing an electron. Now that electron has an attraction with the nucleus. So as the electron have an attraction with the nucleus, until and unless we break that attraction, we cannot remove the electron. Now to break that attraction, we are supposed to provide an energy. Now that energy will make an atom as an ion. If you take an electron from sodium, then sodium will become Na plus. So Na plus is going to be called as an ion there. So what amount of energy you are providing, that energy is making an atom into ion. Therefore we say that it is an energy given to an atom to make it as an ion, and hence it is called as ionization energy. Hence it is going to be called as ionization energy. So practically if we say, if you are going to remove more number of electron, it is possible, no doubt into that. If you have removed one electron, you can still remove second electron, still third electron. But do remember, we have just studied the size of an atom. Between Na and Na plus is bigger, Na is bigger, and Na plus is smaller. This is going to be Na, and that of Na plus 1, smaller. When you are removing one more electron, then it is going to be Na plus 2. Practically it is not possible for sodium, but if you just take an example, if you remove the electron, then it is going to be still smaller, then it is going to be again still smaller. So what will happen? If the size of atom itself goes on increasing, then electron start coming closer to the nucleus, and when it start coming closer to the nucleus, then amount of energy required to remove that will automatically increase. So therefore first ionization energy I1, first ionization energy is lesser value than that of a second is lesser value than that of a third. So as we go on removing an electron, the ionization energy increases, because electron goes on becoming less and less. So as electron decreases, the remaining electron goes closer to the nucleus, effective nuclear charge increases, and hence ionization energy is going to increase there. Hence ionization energy is going to increase. Basically it is going to be a positive value. The reason is that we are providing this energy into an atom. Atom is not giving us an energy, we are providing, and whenever matter take energy from the surrounding, it will become an endothermic process. And endothermic process is always represented by positive sign according to the thermodynamics. If it is going to be exothermic process, then that will get represented by the negative sign there. That is going to be represented by the negative sign. So next this is what our ionization enthalpy. So down the group, as you just know that down the group size of atom is increasing. As size of atom is increasing, electrons are away from the nucleus, so less attraction, easily removed, so ionization energy decreases. Along the period, size of atom is decreasing, electrons are coming closer and closer to the nucleus, so as they are coming closer, they need more energy. So graphically also you can see here, sodium has an ionization energy 520 kilojoule per mole, whereas lithium has an 520, sodium has an 495, the potassium has a 419, rubidium 403, cesium 374, means lithium 520, beryllium 899, boron 801, carbon 1086, nitrogen 1402, oxygen 1314, fluorine 1381, neon 2081. So two changes you can see here. So if you go on the basis of size, as we go along the group, as we go along the periods, size will decreases. It means that as boron is coming after beryllium, means boron is smaller in the size as compared to the beryllium. But the problem is that it has more ionization energy than that of an boron. So only size is not going to be a reason to decide the higher or lesser ionization energy. Along with the sign, the electronic configuration also plays a role. The electronic configuration also plays a role. If you see the beryllium is a group second member, and group second member has the outermost configuration S2. It means that S orbital is completely filled. And whenever we remove an electron from completely filled orbital, it is not going to give you the electron easily. So therefore, it has more energy than that of a boron, Similarly for nitrogen, if you see a nitrogen, because oxygen comes after the nitrogen, means oxygen is smaller than that of nitrogen. So on the basis of size, oxygen should have more energy than that of nitrogen, but here nitrogen has more. The reason is that its electronic configuration. The outermost configuration, if you see of a nitrogen, it's a p3. So p3 means what? See, what is the capacity of the p orbital? It can accommodate a 6 electron totally. P3 means what? There are 3 p orbital, px, py and pz. Px, py and the pz. So according to the Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity, whenever you have more than one electron having more than one orbital, you cannot fill up the electron like 1 2 1 2 1 2. You should give equal number of electron to all the orbital, and if electron remain, the pairing can take place. So P3 means what? It's going to be 1 here, second here. Oh, it means that each orbital is going to have one electron. So each orbital is having same number of electrons. This is called as symmetrical electronic distribution. Whenever any electron or whenever any element will get a symmetrical electronic distribution, the element can get the extra stability. So here P3 is there, so there is symmetrical distribution. Because of that, it is getting an extra stability. The extra stability is not there with an oxygen because it is a P4. It is not there with an oxygen. Now, when you remove the electron from nitrogen, it is going to lose the extra stability. Now, not to lose the extra stability, nitrogen is not going to easily give the electron. So therefore, its energy is going to be bigger there or larger in the values. And also in every period, the noble gas will be found out with the highest amount of energy because they have completed an octet. So when they lose the electron, they are going to lose the octet. So to not lose an octet, so they are not going to give the electron easily. So you just have certain exceptions. The exceptions are what? Whenever we remove an electron for completely filled shell, definitely it is going to have more. Whenever we remove an electron from half filled or completely filled configuration. So these are, you cannot observe half filled or completely filled in the S configuration. Whereas in the P, we can have a P3 or P6. In the D, we can have a D5 or a D10. In the F, we can have a F7 or F14. So whenever you come across these electronic configuration, you will be coming across the copper, the chromium in the D block family also. P3 means all are going to have single electron. P6 all are having double electron. D5 all D orbital are having single. D6 all are having double. F7 all F orbital are having 1 1. F14 all are having 2 2. So these are the electronic configuration which have a symmetrical distribution, and they all will get the extra stability. So because of that extra stability reason, their ionization energy is going to be always higher, and it is going to be against the rules also. Now these are some of the factors we have discussed which can affect the ionization energy. One, atomic size. I told you small will be the size of atom, more will be the energy. Larger size of atom, less will be the energy. Effective nuclear charge. So this is again decided by the size of an atom. Smaller size is going to have more effective nuclear charge, larger is going to have less. Then shielding effect. Shielding effect means what? The last shell electron are filled into the SPDF. Whether they can allow the last shell electron to come closer or to go away from. That is called shielding effect. If they strongly shield, then size of atom is going to be bigger there. Then completely filled and half or completely filled. So this is what? Half and completely filled configuration, irrespective of the rule, irrespective of the size, irrespective of their location in the periodic table. They don't want to lose the extra stability, hence they are going to consume more energy there. Now the next property is going to be an electron gain enthalpy or electron affinity. This is somewhat opposite to the ionization energy. In the ionization, we are removing an electron by giving the energy. Whereas in the electron affinity, the atom will give the electron. So we will add the electron and atom will give us energy there. So we are going to add the electron in an outer shell of an atom, and in respect to that the element is going to give us an energy. So as energy is coming out here, therefore it is going to be a negative value or exo process. Therefore it is going to be a negative value or exo process. So this is what the amount of energy released, liberated or evolved. You can take a meaning in whatever way we want to do. Released, evolved or liberated when an atom will take the electron. So whenever any atom will take an electron, what energy it will give to the surrounding, that is called as electron gain enthalpy or electron affinity. Most of the time it is going to be negative value with a certain exception. So this is decided by size of atom. Basically, if size of atom is large, then who is the receiver actually there? The nucleus is the receiver, because nucleus is positively charged and the outer shell is going to have an electron which is negatively charged. So whatever additional electron you are adding there, it will go into the outer shell only. Now who is the receiver? It's a nucleus receiver, because opposite charge only can receive. The electron cannot receive an electron because they will repel. So if a nucleus is closer to the incoming electron, then it can show more interest to receive that. And if the electron is far away from the nucleus, then nucleus do not show more interest. In that cases it is going to be less. So small size, the nucleus is closer for the incoming electron, so easily it can receive, so more energy it can give to the surrounding. A large size atom, as the nucleus and the incoming electron are far away from, so nucleus don't have an interest to receive that electron. So as it don't have an interest to receive that, it is like if you have an exam tomorrow or day after tomorrow, we will be very closer to the books because time limitation is less. But if the exam is after 1 year, we will be far away from the books because time limitation is bigger there. So similarly cases, nucleus closer to the electron, ready to receive and give maximum energy. Nucleus away from the electron, not interested and very less amount of energy. So down the group, size of atom increases, electron affinity decreases. Along the period, size of atom decreases, electron affinity is going to increases, with again exceptions. I suggest you to trace more over the exceptions, because exceptions will become a question into the examination. So if you see here for a group 1, lithium, sodium, potassium and rubidium, it's a 59.53.48.48. As we move down the group, they are increasing the size. So as increase in the size, it is decreasing there. Whereas for a group, if you see there, a lithium 59.8, beryllium 0, I'll come to why it is 0, 83, 122, 15, it is also less, 140, 322, and it's a 0 only. The exceptions are the outer configuration of beryllium. You have seen that it has S2 configuration. S2 configuration means what? Already the S orbital is completely filled. So as S orbital is completely filled, the beryllium has no much of the interest to receive the electron. So therefore it is not going to release the amount of energy. Similar is the case with the neon. The neon, this is what? The noble gas element. And they have already completed an octet. So as they have completed an octet, they are already stable there. So as they are stable, they don't need of any electron to get again stability. The one who is already stable will not demand for an electron. So therefore for the noble gases also it is going to be negative, 0. Whereas for the sodium, nitrogen, it is going to be positive, which is very, very less. The reason that outer configuration of nitrogen is P3. Just now I cleared that P3 means what? It is going to have an extra stability. It is going to have an extra stability there. Now when you add an electron into P3, it is going to be P4. And what will be a P4 then? If you go by the rule of, it is going to be first electron, second, third and the fourth. Means what? When a nitrogen receives an electron, all orbital will not get a equal distribution. It's a 2, 1, 1. This is unsymmetrical. Whereas P3, 1, 1, 1. This is symmetrical. So therefore, a nitrogen, when it takes an electron, it will lose the extra stability. And it don't want to lose an extra stability. So to avoid that, To avoid the loss of extra stability, it will not show an interest to take the electron. Therefore, its electron affinity is going to be a minimum value. In other cases, you will see that the noble gases is going to have an electron affinity positive value also. Normally it is going to be negative, but if you go beyond that, then it is going to have positive value. The reason is that as they are not interested, they are going to get it by the 0 only. But imagine that the person who is adding an electron is interested there, then definitely he can add an electron to the outermost shell. But in that case, it is going to have a much repulsion there. And to overcome that repulsion along with the electron, you are supposed to give an energy also. So this will become opposite. In the electron affinity, what it is becoming? We are giving the electron, energy will be given by the atom. Whereas in the noble gases, we are giving electron, also we are giving an energy. Then that will become an exo. In place of an exo, that will changes to an endothermic process. So you just focus exceptional basis, because exceptional basis will become an questions there. Now talking about electron affinity, how? Again there are exceptions with respect to fluorine family. So fluorine has 322, chlorine has 384, bromine is going to be 324, iodine is going to be. So with respect to fluorine, bromine, iodine, it is going to be somewhat by the rule. Whereas here some changes are there, because down the group size increases. Size increases means it has to decrease. Whereas with respect to fluorine, the chlorine is going to have more. It means that it is not following the rule there. Then we need to get an answer. Why is it going against the rule? If you just see the sizes, the fluorine has a 7 electron into the outermost shell. The chlorine also has a 7 electron into the outermost shell. So as a 7 electron is the same in case of a fluorine as well as chlorine. It is same in case of a fluorine as well as chlorine. So here the distance available for 7 electron in the fluorine is very, very less. So because of that, it is going to have inter-electronic repulsion. Means the electron who are there already in the shell, they are having, whereas in the chlorine they are happy with one another. Now imagine that you are moving to a family as a guest, and the member of a family itself are not happy with one another. Is it possible for a guest to stay there for a longer time? Definitely not. So therefore, as in the case of a fluorine, the electron itself are having a fighting with one another. So you cannot add the electron which is going to be host electron, which is going to be a guest electron. So because of that inter-electronic repulsion, the addition of electron will not take place easily. Whereas here in case of chlorine, it can be very easily there. Therefore, chlorine, though has a bigger size, because of less electronic repulsion, it is going to have more electron affinity. Now the last property here, it is going to be an electronegativity. So now let us discuss regarding electronegativity. So what is electronegativity? It is an capacity or ability of an atom. It is going to be an capacity or ability of an atom to pull the electron which is shared into a bond, to pull the shared pair of electron. Now that pulling is going to be based by the nucleus. As a nucleus is closer to the electron, definitely nucleus can command over the electron and the electron can be pulled off there. So therefore, how do we relate that how variations are going to take place? So that is going to be definitely depends on the size of an atom. As small will be the size of an atom, the electron which is there in the bond which is shared is closer to the nucleus. So as it is closer to the nucleus, it can be easily pulled there. As the nucleus goes away from, as the electron or the nucleus goes away from one another, the nucleus cannot command over an electron and pulling will become difficult. So therefore, as we have seen that down the group size increases, hence electronegativity is going to increase, whereas along the period the size is going to decrease, hence electronegativity is going to increase. And we find out that the fluorine is the strongest electronegative element in the entire periodic table. So this is what a roughly classification based on the properties as well as what was the variation. So far we have studied regarding the periodic properties. So if you just see that atomic radius, it will goes on increasing down the group, it goes on decreasing along the period, right to left it is going to increase. If you see the electron affinity, ionization energy, electronegativity, they all are opposite to the atomic radius. As atomic radius increases, they all are decreases. As atomic radius decreases, they all are going to increase. Similarly, down the group also, atomic radius and other property are opposite. As atomic radius increases, all are going to decreases, or atomic radius decreases, all are going to increase. Means atomic radius is somewhat opposite to the other property, and metallic property and non-metallic property are going to be diagonally related there. Now let us solve some questions based on what so far we have studied in the classification of element on the periodic property. Maximum of questions has got appeared into the previous question paper. So let me tell you what will be the possible level of link one can relate. See, it is what CET, with one concept it is impossible to answer the respective question. To answer one particular concept, one particular questions, you need to gather the related links there, then only it is going to be easy. So let us solve few MCQs. So we have a first question here. Mg plus 2 is isoelectronic width. Mg plus 2 is isoelectronic width. Now to understand that with whom Mg plus 2 can be an isoelectronic, first you should know what is Mg. The Mg is going to be a magnesium. The magnesium has an atomic number 12. The magnesium has an atomic number 12. And in the given question it is a plus 2, means plus stands for loss. So magnesium has lost 2 electron, means out of the 12 electron, if 2 electron goes off there, the remaining electrons are going to be 10. Now Mg plus 2 has how many electron? It has 10 electron. Then I need to see that option. I need to see that option where there will be 10 electron. And if that option has a 10 electron, then it only iso there. So therefore find out. If you just take a zinc, see, solving a question is not most important. Solving a question with a minimum time is most important, because roughly you will be having a 60 marks for a 60 minutes there. So if you take a 1 hour to solve one question, though the right it is not going to be an effective there. So you need to try to solve in a minimum time, then only it can be an effective. Then only it can be an effective. So therefore you should get a roughly there, whether the element is nearer about or not. If it is nearer about, then only you can think about whether a electron count should be taken into the consideration or not. If the electron is far away from the magnesium, you should not go for its electronic configuration only, because that is not going to get an answers there. So if we just to talk about zinc and copper are not closer to the atomic number of magnesium 12. Zinc is going to be 30, copper is going to be 29. By 2 electron loss or 1 electron loss, they cannot get an 10. So you just forget about zinc and copper. Now talk about calcium and sodium. So also, if you just now I told you that you should know minimum 30, then only you can have an idea. The calcium will come around a 19 and sodium come around 11. So as a sodium is an 11 there, when it become a plus 1, it is going to have the loss of 1 electron. Then 11 electron changes to 10 electron, means that magnesium plus 2 is isoelectronic with the sodium plus 1. Sodium plus 1. Second one, the element with the highest first ionization energy. First means what? To remove the first electron, what amount of energy it has taken, that is called as first ionization energy. So who has the highest first ionization energy between? So you got a carbon there, oxygen, boron and the nitrogen. So I told you, whenever you get an element from the same period or group, try to arrange them in the series. So it's a calcium, carbon, oxygen, boron and the nitrogen. So boron has to come first, then it is going to be carbon, then it is going to be nitrogen, then it is going to be an oxygen. So most of the time we have seen that. As you know the atomic radius, so as they are in the one period, so boron, carbon, nitrogen and the oxygen, means that the boron is oxygen is going to have the last element. So on the basis of size, the oxygen is found to be the smallest in the size. As oxygen is the smallest in the size, we predict that smaller the size of an atom, more will be the ionization energy. But do remember, there are some exceptional element also in the same group as well as period. You should not forget them. I told you into the previous discussion, nitrogen has a P3 configuration. Because of P3 configuration, it is going to have an extra stability, and because of extra stability, though it is bigger as compared to oxygen, it will not give the electron easily. So therefore the right answer is going to be an nitrogen. The right answer is going to be an nitrogen. The third, among Na, Na plus, Mg and Mg plus 2. The largest particle is, means it is based on the size. The largest particle is. So I told you, so most of the time you may not get a question by the same groups. It is going to have different. It is going to be Na, then it is going to be Mg. So sodium and magnesium are in the same period. So Na also there is Na plus, Mg also there is Mg plus 2. So if you just to make a box, as you just know that whenever any element lose an electron, its size goes on decreasing. If this is the size of an Na, then automatically size of an Na plus is going to be this. And Na and Mg are along the, as they are along the size, along the group period, size decreases. So means Mg should be smaller than the Na. Then Mg changes to Mg plus 2. So there is a 2 low electron loss. Means if 1 electron loss make this much of size, then 2 electron is going to again decreases than that. If you just see the spheres here, this is very smaller, then this is, then the Mg and the sodium. So the question is what? Largest. The question is what? The largest. So it is going to be a, sodium is going to be a larger there. They may also ask you which is going to be the smallest. In that smallest, you should not arrange them also, you just see which has the highest positive charge, that is going to be the smallest. They may also ask you arrange them in the increasing or decreasing order of the size. So if it is in increasing order, smaller should be first, larger will come last. If it is a decreasing order, larger will be first, smaller will be at the last. So this is how in all the aspects you can be related. Now the next question. The correct order in which first ionization energy increases. The correct order in which first ionization energy increases. So you need to see that out of the given element, which element has the highest ionization energy. So the elements are, with the options, the elements are almost like the same. We got a potassium, beryllium, sodium, potassium, sodium, potassium, beryllium, sodium, potassium, sodium, beryllium. Means the elements are not different. Only their position into the options are different, whereas the 3 elements are common in all the options. So you just found out that out of the 3 elements, which has a small size, which has a bigger size. So if you just see that potassium, beryllium and the sodium and the potassium come in say one family, whereas beryllium will be the next to the sodium family. It is going to be next to the sodium family, because lithium, after lithium it is going to be a beryllium there. So if you just see the sodium and potassium, they are large size, and lithium is along the period small size. So as you know that beryllium is a small size, then potassium, sodium and then potassium. Means if you go on a size wise basis, as beryllium is a smaller size, definitely its ionization energy should be highest than that of sodium and potassium. And also a beryllium has outer electron configuration S2, so it is going to not give the electron easily. So therefore beryllium is going to have the highest one. So they are asking us in increasing order. I told you, if you are answering in the increasing order, then first will be lowest one, last will be highest one. So where is the last highest one? You need to choose beryllium here in the C option, beryllium here in the D option. Means A and B are get deleted there. Then you need to see which has the lowest. It's a potassium. C has a sodium, D has a potassium. So you can just go for D will be your perfect answer there. Similarly, the oxide of an element whose electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1. So 3s1, it's a 2 electron, then 8 electron, then 2 electron. Means this will belongs to the S block. This is going to belongs to the S block, S1. We have got an idea about electronic configuration. S1 to 2 is going to be an S block element. So S block element is S1 stands for a S block element. Mostly if you go for some of the property like oxides property, whether oxides are basic, acidic or a neutral. Some are going to be an amphoteric also. So mostly it has been observed the oxides of a S block are basic in the nature. Oxides of a S block are what? Basic. So S1 configuration means it is an S block element. S block element, the oxide is going to be basic there. Oxide is going to be basic there. And also it is going to be 2, 2, 4, 6, 10, 1, 11. Means it's a sodium. Sodium belongs to the S block, so therefore it is going to be basic. Next, the correct order of ionization energy of the correct order of ionization energy of the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen and the fluorine. So if you just see on the basis of data, sometime question is going to have based in two ways. If you go with the relative extra stability, nitrogen among the four has the highest ionization energy. So you need to find out which options has a nitrogen there. So you are going to arrange. They have not given an order in what way we are supposed to arrange, whether we should go for increasing order or whether we should go for a decreasing order. Then we will be having both the choices. If the options are related to the increasing order, we will go for increasing order. If the options are related to the decreasing order, we will go for a decreasing order. So if you see increasing or decreasing, as arrow stands for one side, so it means they are fluorine, oxygen, fluorine, carbon. See, if you go basis, nitrogen should have the highest, but in none of options we can find out a nitrogen there. Means that we need to go for next element, because nitrogen decides its highest ionization energy because of extra stability, whereas fluorine also has an highest ionization energy because of highest electronegativity. If the answer don't come in our convenience, in what convenience the question has an options, in that way we are supposed to answer. It is not that all multiple level of questions will be having a same way of answering. It will be related. If it is not nitrogen related, definitely I should go for an fluorine related. Definitely I should go for an fluorine related. So fluorine is there in the C option, fluorine is there into the B options. Means either B or C are going to be the right answer. So only fluorine cannot decide now, because fluorine is at the same position in both the options. Then decide. After fluorine, no doubt it is going to be nitrogen, because it has more stability than that of an oxygen. So here it's a nitrogen, here it's an oxygen, means option C is going to be correct on the basis of fluorine aspect, on the basis of fluorine aspect. Next, the correct order of electronegativity. We are going to talk about electronegativity. So we have been given an element nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine and the phosphorus. So we need to arrange them in the correct order of their increasing or decreasing electronegativity. If you just see the element nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine and phosphorus, we know that fluorine is the highest electronegative element in the entire periodic table. So this is what option A has a fluorine, option C has a fluorine, option B don't, option D means it is going to be either A or C or it is going to be D. Then whenever you have more number of elements, you just go for right and left. First find out which is highest, then go for, if the highest has more options again, then go for a lowest one. So it's a fluorine, oxygen, nitrogen, that belongs to the one family. Then you got on phosphorus. So as nitrogen, fluorine, oxygen, it's a one group, one period element. Fluorine, phosphorus is going to be next period. So next period means next group it is. And as you go down the group, size increases, negativity decreases. Means phosphorus should have the lowest electronegativity. So here oxygen, fluorine, phosphorus, fluorine, nitrogen. So nitrogen cannot be, oxygen cannot be. So option A will automatically become a right answer there. Next, which of the following pair is isoelectron? Which of the following pair is isoelectronic? Again, to understand isoelectronic, the number of electrons should be same there. The argon, chlorine, MgNa plus, MgNe and Ne plus. Argon atomic number is going to be 18, chlorine 17, not equal. Mg12, neon 10, not equal. Mg12, sodium is actually 11, but now it is plus 1 means 10. So 12, 10 are not same. Neon 10, sodium 11 plus 1, now it's a 10. So this is going to be, D will be the right answer there. Now, which of the following set of ions represent the collection of isoelectronic ions? So they have given the set of ions into the options. You need to understand which of the set of ions has the same number of electrons. The one which has the same number of electrons, that will become an isoelectronic. So you got Na potassium plus Cl minus Mg plus 2. So you just focus. Mg is an atomic number 12. The potassium, chlorine, scandium, they are higher element, atomic number 17, 18, 19, 20. Whereas Mg is going to be 12. So that cannot match. So you forget about Mg there. Here sodium, calcium, scandium, calcium will come after 18. Sodium is going to be like, you will forget there. Potassium, calcium, scandium, chlorium. and here it is a sodium, magnesium, aluminum, chlorine. Sodium, magnesium, aluminum closer, but chlorine is going to be 17. If you will remain with Na plus, K plus, Ca plus 2, Sr plus 3. So it is going to atomic number 19, so plus 1, 18. Atomic number 20 plus 2, 18. Atomic number 21 plus 3, 18. Atomic number 17. Minus means you are adding an electron, so now it is going to be 8. So option C will be the right answer there. Now the last question. Generally the first ionization energy increases along the period. First ionization energy increases along the period because size decreases. But there are some exceptions. One which is not an exception. So try to understand. The statement is generally first ionization energy increases along the period. Yeah, this is true. Along the period size of atom increases, hence ionization energy increases. It is true. But there are some exceptions. There is no doubt that there are such an exception, because nitrogen, though it is bigger than that of an oxygen, it has more ionization energy. This is an exception. This is also right. Now the question is which is not an exception. So they are trying to confuse you. Along the period increases, exception, and they are asking which is not an exception there. Means exceptions are not going to be an answer, which is not an exception will be an answer. Say sodium and nitrogen and oxygen. Nitrogen and oxygen is the exception because nitrogen, though it is not smaller than the oxygen, it has more, it is an exception. Sodium and magnesium. See, magnesium has S2 configuration, group 2, alkaline earth metal, sodium. So this is also an exception. Magnesium and aluminum, this is not going to be an exception. The reason is that it is S2A. Beryllium and boron, it is also not going to be an exception, because beryllium comes first, then it is going to be an. Beryllium is going to first, then it is going to be an boron there. So as a beryllium has S2 configuration, boron has S2P1 configuration. Magnesium has S2 configuration, aluminum has S2P1 configuration. Nitrogen and oxygen, and here it is going to be sodium S1, magnesium S2. So here S2 configuration, it's a P3, it's a S2. Means though they are having somewhat large size than that of an aluminum in case of here, boron in case of here, and nitrogen in case of here, they all will be having more ionization energy, which is against the rule. Therefore it is going to be an exception. Whereas here nitrogen has S1, magnesium has S2. This is by the rule, because they are going to have decrease in the size, and as the size decreases, their ionization energy is going to increases. So this is not an exception, it is going to follow the rule, whereas these three are an exception. So our question was one which is not exception. So this is going to be a right answer for the respective question. So sometime questions itself will take some data, and that data will be taken in a multiple way. So as will take in a multiple way, your approach should be proper. If you have a proper approach to the question, definitely you will end up with a right answer. So this is regarding some of the questions from the unit called as a classification of element and the periodicity. So in the next class, if you have any doubts regarding what theoretical part we have taken in the classification of element and periodicity, also what are the MCQs you have solved. So let me tell you one thing, as I have taken the first year unit, and as you have completed second year, you are just waiting for your CET examinations. So you don't have much of the connectivity with the first year syllabus at present. So therefore, while watching some of the videos, it may be of physics, chemistry or mathematics, which is from a first year section, definitely for few days you are going to face a problem. But that problem is not going to be a permanent one. See, today onward we are going to tell you that what will be the next videos we are going to make on the respective unit. So when we go on telling you that this is a unit that will be taken for the next day, it is your responsibility to read certain things about that unit before we could give you the link of the video. So for this time, tomorrow I'll be dealing with the first year unit itself, called as a chemical bonding and molecular structure. So if you read it, by today or by the tomorrow morning before I could upload a video there, then definitely understanding the chemical bonding and the molecular structure is going to be very easy. So for the time being, this is regarding. So I thank you.
I'm an icon, man. I'm a girl about a 10. I should fuck her in a Benz.